Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show. Charlie Bahama Show.
It's the Charlie Bahama Show. Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the Charlie Bahama Show. I am your boy, Charlie Bahama. And today's show, man, we have a great show for you today. We have the man behind Who Let the Dogs Out. Well, we know the Baha Men is the group, but we have the man
Your Vital Malt Classic, sir.
Well, thank you, Pickersniff.
Dave.
Pickersniff, thank you so much. Gotta have my Vitamalt for this one. The man behind the Baha Men and Who Let the Dogs Out, Steve Greenberg. He's also behind a few other little smaller groups like Hanson, the Jonas Brothers, and Joss Stone, and so many more. But the Baha Men, that's the main one, okay? And we have him on talking about how Who Let the Dogs Out got made and all the new things that he's up to, all right? So come on back, Charlie Bahama Show. The Charlie Bahama Show will be right back. Keep up with all things Charlie Bahama by following Charlie Bahama on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Get behind-the-scenes access to Bahamian and international celebrities, along with travel info, tips, photography, and video. Like, share, and follow Charlie Bahama on all social media platforms. And subscribe to our Charlie Bahama YouTube page to catch up on all past episodes and bonus clips. You can also go to charliebahama.com anytime. We always keep the lights on. The Charlie Bahama Show. All that same flair with a little less hair.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show. And as promised, I got the man behind Who Let the Dogs Out. He's the dog keeper himself. Steve Greenberg is in the house. What's up, Steve?
Oh, all's good. I'm here in New York City, and I'm just happy to be here talking to you, Charlie.
Yeah, do you feel a little bit of that Bahamian sunshine just from, talking to me on the Charlie Bahama Show?
It's more the island breeze.
Hey, to be honest, this guy here is an honorary Bahamian. In fact, actually, you're probably more Bahamian than me because you got a key to the city.
I did. I was fortunate enough to receive the key to the city. It was in 2001 after the Baha Men won the Grammy for Best Dance Recording for Who Let the Dogs Out. And there was a big parade down Bay Street in Nassau, and we got the key to the city from the Prime Minister. It was very exciting. We were all parading down Bay Street in these convertible cars holding our Grammys up in the air. It was very exciting.
Wow, I got nothing from the Bahamas. They don't even give me a lock or anything. They give me a broom and they tell me to clean the streets. That's about it. But you do know a lot about, especially Bahamian music. So I want to let people know because you are obviously an A&R, head of your own label. You've worked in all aspects of music. So actually, let's get a little background on you because you're like, to me, an artist's A&R guy. Like you really love the artists, And before you came on at the intro of my show, I let everybody know that you were not only the man behind the Baha Men, but also Hanson, Jonas Brothers, Joss Stone, so many more, AJR. But tell us some of the earlier people where you started, because there was a lot in that like sort of blues or soul type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, actually, funnily enough, I started out by doing like historical compilations of like older music where we were putting stuff out on CD box sets back in the day. So I did a lot of that kind of stuff. I did a thing called the Complete Stax Volt Singles, which was the history of a label that was based in Memphis, Tennessee in the 60s that had Otis Redding on it and Isaac Hayes and Sam and Dave and all these people. And then I moved into contemporary A&R, and the first job I had was as head of A&R of a dance pop kind of label called Big Beat Records, which was owned by Atlantic Records. And over there, I worked with a lot of artists, Inner Circle, who had Bad Boys and Sweat, and Robin S., who had Show Me Love, and then, of course, the Baha Men, who I first signed in 1992 to their first album. And we put that out later that year in 1992. And that was really, really exciting. And then I moved on to Atlantic Records, and then later Mercury Records. At Mercury Records, I worked with Bon Jovi, and I worked with Hanson, who I signed. I discovered them at a county fair in Kansas. And then started my own label, S Curve. And the very first record we ever put out on S Curve was Who Let the Dogs Out. In fact, the reason we even started a label was to put out Who Let the Dogs Out.
Wow. You got to tell us how that happened.
Yeah, you know what happened was somebody came in and played me a very terrible version of the song, this British guy who had done a cover of it in 1998 after the song had appeared at Trinidad Carnival that year. And this guy did a bad version. I hated his version so much, but I loved the hook. You know, I just thought it was the best hook in the world. And so I put the CD that the guy gave me up on my shelf, and I said, one of these days I'm going to figure out the right way to do this song, and we're going to have a hit. And I would keep coming back to that song on the shelf every once in a while, you know. And eventually I just kind of thought, oh, I have an idea of how to do this song and make it work. At the time, there was a big record called Whoop There It Is by Tag Team. And I thought, oh, that kind of vibe, you know, a little bit of that, like, it's a little Miami bass kind of thing, whatever that is. That kind of vibe, I can see, like, if you married that vibe to this song, Who Let the Dogs Out, maybe you could have a big hit, you know. But I needed somebody to sing it. So I thought, oh, what about the Baha Men, right? So I called Isaiah from the Baha Men, and he didn't want to do it. He didn't understand why I was so excited about it. Like, this song came and went already, you know, whatever. But not everywhere else in the world it hadn't. So he finally agreed to do the song, which was very generous of him. And then I found out that Nehemiah, who was the lead singer of the Baha Men at the time, he had been the lead singer for a long time, actually, had decided to leave the Baha Men and go out on the road and be Lenny Kravitz's backup singer. Now, Lenny Kravitz is somebody, of course, who you, Charlie, have a long relationship with. And in fact, you were the one who introduced us to Lenny Kravitz a few years earlier when he worked on one of the songs on the Baha Men's album. And that was purely because of your connection. So the Baha Men knew Lenny through all that. And Nehemiah was a little frustrated because the Baha Men hadn't had any real commercial success to that point. We made some great records. I think we made 5 records together before Who Let the Dogs Out, and they were great, but they didn't have a big commercial success outside of Japan, actually. And that's where Lenny was going on tour with Nehemiah as his backup singer. So I was begging Nehemiah, please don't quit the band. I'm telling you, this Who Let the Dogs Out thing is going to be big, you know. So he didn't want to stay in the group, so now we're kind of back to square one because we have this song, but we don't have a singer. So Mike Mangini, who produced the record with me, he went down to the Bahamas and held open auditions to find replacement singers for Nehemiah. And instead of finding one singer, he found 3 singers, which was kind of amazing. And that turned out to be the magic recipe. You can see, I see behind you, Charlie, you have the platinum record for Let the Dogs Out, and I see the 3 singers right there. You know, Marvin and Omerit, and of course Rick. So, you know, we put those guys in the group, and boom, it was magic.
Wow. Yeah, well, listen, I see our special guest is coming on. I see him trying to get in. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to our first commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to be joined by Isaiah from the Baha Men. Come on back, Charlie Bahama Show. The Charlie Bahama Show will be right back. Hey, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show. And now we are so honored to be joined by my good friend Isaiah, the leader of the Baha Men and probably the wickedest bass player, you know, in the world. You know, this is it, not just in the Bahamas, in the world. This man knows what he's doing on that bass. Isaiah, man.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Charlie.
You see who we got here, eh?
And man, look, it's a pleasure seeing Steve, man.
And it's a pleasure seeing you, Isaiah, always.
Wow. Listen, yeah, we go back a long way. I can remember because I was a part of from the beginning with Back to the Island. And I remember sitting there, that's when I first met Steve. And so Steve, we spoke about Who Let the Dogs Out, and we all know that, you know, Zaya, just like me, was like, we ain't want to do this song. But let's go back to the beginning. What did you see in High Voltage at the time? Now, I knew High Voltage because of my show Electric Air. High Voltage was on the show a couple of times before they became the Baha Men. What did you see in the high voltage when you first, heard them? Like, what made you go, I gotta sign these guys?
That's a pretty good story, actually. What happened was I was the head of A&R of this label, Big Beat, as I mentioned, and a producer who lived in New Jersey at the time, but who was originally from the Bahamas
Yeah,
and still
Bahamian.
strong connection with the Bahamas, named Kendall Stubbs,
Yeah.
came into the office, and came in really to play me songs for one of the groups that we had on Big Beat at the time called Jomanda. And first of all, he came in and he came in about an hour late for the meeting. And he came in, he was all covered in sweat. It was the summer.
That's Steve. You should know by now. That's Bahamian time.
Okay.
An hour late, he's on time. Okay.
But he comes in and he gave me a whole tale of woe. He said, I had such trouble getting to the city. I had to come through the Lincoln Tunnel and it was jammed. And I spent like a half hour stuck in the Lincoln Tunnel in, high heat. And then I came out and I was looking for parking, circling and circling. I couldn't find any parking. And then I finally had to park the car in a garage, and the garage cost me $35. And it was just like this very sad tale. So I said, well, don't worry about it. Just let's hear the songs, So he plays one song for Jomanda, and it wasn't what we were looking for. And he played another song for Jomanda, and it wasn't what we were looking for. And then I said, okay, well, what else you got? He goes, no, that's it. Now, he'd been in my office like a grand total of about 5 minutes. And I felt really bad because he told this tale of woe. It took him 2 hours to get to the city, and he cost him $35 to park. And he was so frustrated and sweaty and, all that kind of stuff. So I said, well, don't you have anything else you can play me? Like, just play me something, Because I just didn't want the meeting to end that quickly because it seemed not fair, after he had made so much effort. So he said, well, all I have is this one like local Bahamian thing, but you won't be interested in that. I said, just play it for me. I just wanted to keep the meeting going a couple more minutes, So he puts in Back to the Island by the Baha Men, which actually I think at the time was presented to me as The Crow, and it was by High Voltage. And I heard it and I said, well, this is great. This is the best thing you've played me, I love this. I want to put this out. And he thought I was joking with him. He said, you don't. I said, no, I really do. I want to put this out. And so he got the wheels in motion, and I'm guessing that probably the next thing he did, Isaiah, was probably call you.
Yes, he did.
Tell me about that. I mean, Zaya, we're from the Bahamas, so we know how hard it is to get, any kind of notice out of the Bahamas. Like anybody to pay attention to us, out of the Bahamas. It's so hard for us to get our music onto the international stage. So when Kendall called you, you must have thought he was joking, eh?
Absolutely. When Kendall called, I'm like, man, you sure? I said, you really sure? He said, I am sure. I said, okay, then let's go. Let's go. And when you look at it, Charlie, out of all the people I've ever worked with in my whole career, man, and I'm not saying this because he's here on the interview. I'm saying it because it's a fact. I enjoyed it. And I always talk about it. Steve is the best.
Oh, it's nice of you.
Yeah.
No, he is. It's no. What I love about Steve, he's real.
Mm-hmm.
You work with a lot of people, but a lot of phony people. But Steve was real. And what I loved even more, he was hands-on. Here it is. You got someone who's on you and who wants to make sure that it's right. Man, you embrace that person because that don't come by every day.
Yeah, I believe that you got to get things really right. You never know what's the thing that's going to turn people's head for good or for bad, when they hear music. You want to try to get everything as right as possible, and you don't say, oh, that's not important. Everything's important, and you got to try to get it all right because you never know what the thing is going to make it click. Now, I remember when we did Who Let the Dogs Out and we were mixing the record and we brought the mixes to be mastered, which is the final stage of record making. And there was something that was just slightly off about the CD from the board that we were mastering the record from. There's something wrong. It doesn't have the magic in it. And I had this other CD in my bag. It wasn't even in a case. It was just like laying there in my bag, carrying it around for days. I said, let's see if this still works. I remember I walked out of the studio with this, and this was right. And Mike Mangini, who mixed the record, actually said, no, it can't be any different. It's a digital copy. They have to all be the same. There's no difference. I said, let's just put this in. We put in one, and the one I had this like kind of more piercing sound on the snare on the verses. I'm not sure why. Nobody's sure why to this day. Why it was different from the one that he came into the studio with, because he pulled it off the same file on his computer and just burned a CD. But there was something about it, and when I put the other one in, he said, "Oh, you're right. This one's better. This one has something going on, some mojo, going on in it that the other one didn't have." I said, "See, I told you there's magic in this one." So that's the one that we used for the record, the one that had been lying around in my bag. I've been carrying it around, going to the gym with it and stuff, for like a week without a case. And thankfully it was not damaged, because I don't know that the record would have been a hit, because there was just this little thing, it just cut in a good way, and the other one didn't cut the same way. And I know that's a hard thing to kind of get your head around, that would matter, but it did. Like, for me, one of the things that I do as an A&R guy, one of the most important things I do, is I just play music for people. Like, people come to my office, and I just play them everything I'm working on. Like, doesn't matter who they are, I don't care. I just want to get people's reaction. And it's not even so much getting like people's verbal reaction. I'm watching people's faces. There's a certain part of the song that I think is exciting. Are they going to like react to it, or are they going to just sit there? And I knew that with Who Let the Dogs Out, every time I played that record for people who came into my office, the chorus would come on and everyone would be excited about the chorus, whatever it is. But then you got to the verse. And when you got to the verse and they heard that beat cut through, it was at the same moment that everyone would it was like, the party was nice, the party was jumping, yippee-yay. And at about that point, everybody would turn to me and go, "This is a smash." And I knew that like without the verse sounding the way it did, they would have liked the chorus. They would have walked, I go, "Oh, good chorus, but not much of a record." You know what I mean? But because the verse was so cool sounding also, they were like, "Oh, this is a smash." And it was always at the same exact moment. Like on Joss Stone's album, I made records with Joss Stone years later. And I remember on Joss Stone's first record, which was called The Chokin' Kind. It was the first song on her first album. She sings the first verse, and then right towards the very end of the first verse, Little Beaver, famous guitarist, starts playing a little guitar line on his guitar. And I play that for everybody who came through my office. And it was always at exactly that moment when Little Beaver started to play his little guitar thing that everyone said to me, "This is a smash." So the truth is, like, if you make a record and you get it right, and you don't always get it right, but when you get it right, everybody reacts kind of in the same way. Yeah. It's the coolest thing. On a flop, there's 1,000 different opinions. On a hit, there's one opinion.
Yeah, I will tell you that's right, because Steve, you do play, because I was, the beneficiary of listening to a lot of this music, and I'll tell you the story about Hanson, okay? Because I remember at your Christmas party where you played me Hanson, but we're going to go to a commercial break, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you about that story with Hanson, okay? More Charlie Bahama right after this. The Charlie Bahama Show will be right back. Well, welcome back to the Charlie Bahama Show, and I'm here with Steve Greenberg and Isaiah from the Baha Men. And before we went to the break, Steve, I was telling you about how you do play music, and I was, I got to hear a lot of artists that you were gonna sign, maybe didn't sign, and some you did sign. And I'd be in the studio a lot with you because we remain good friends. I mean, as Isaiah said, you are such a real person, and we remain friends. I mean, going to each other's weddings. But I remember when you played me after a Christmas dinner or whatever, and everybody left because you'd play music a lot, as you said, and you played me Hanson because they had covered the Baha Men, Back to the Island. And you're like, oh, listen to this, Charlie. You know, they covered the Baha Men. And I thought that they did it just for you. And you were like, no, they just covered it. They didn't even know that I had anything to do with the Baha Men. And I was like, Steve, these kids are going to be a hit. And they were such a hit.
Yeah, the Hanson kids, they were great. And they still have a annual thing that they do. I don't know if maybe it's a cruise or maybe it's a show that they do on an island, but it's called Back to the Island. And if you look up Hanson Back to the Island, like on YouTube, you see all the commercials, like year after year for them doing their Back to the Island show. And they're always singing Back to the Island on their commercials for the show. So obviously the song had quite an influence.
You know, management will ask me every day, have you spoken to Steve? And the reason why he would ask me, because he knows how bad I would like to work with Steve again. If I don't work with no one else in my life, Steve is the one that I want to work with again.
That is incredibly nice. One of these days, we got to just find the song. I've said this many times. I would love to work with Isaiah again, but we have to have the song. Without the song, you have nothing. With the song, you have everything. That's the truth about the record business.
And please, can I do the videos again too?
Oh, Charlie did some great videos. Charlie did the Jimmy Water video, which you can still find on YouTube. It's a great video. That was good. And you did the Sunny Day video too, right?
Yeah, yes. and then well, no, the Sunny Day I produced the song, got Lenny to do the song. Back to the Island, I wrote the video, and put it together for Glenn Headley. But yeah, because of Steve, I just realized this. My 2 gold records or whatever, gold and whatever, is because of Steve. That one and this, Joss Stone.
Charlie is an incredible photographer, and he took the picture that's on the cover of that album.
Otherwise, if it wasn't for Steve, I wouldn't have any gold records, man.
No, either one of us.
That album.
Either one of us.
That album sold 3.5 million albums worldwide. So there's 3.5 million people in their house that have that picture taken by Charlie Smith.
How is it to be back out on the road, Zaya?
Oh, I am loving it. I would like to be a little bit more busier, you know, but I'm loving it.
Well, Steve, Isaiah, I'm so happy you guys, took the time out to come together on the Charlie Bahama show. So this is it. So Bahamians out there, get ready, because this is the seed of a new Baha Men project with Steve Greenberg. We're roping Steve Greenberg back into it. So we're just gonna look for that song. Anyway, listen, you guys, both of you.
If anybody out there has the song, let us know.
Let us know. Call Charlie Bahama, and I'll get it to them. So listen, the 2 of y'all, thank you so much, and have a blessed day. And Steve, hopefully I'll be up in New York soon to see you. And Zaya, it's always great to see you when we're together. So. But
listen, is Junkanoo back on this year?
No, it's not the way I'm there talking about it, but it will not be the way we used to it being. It will not happen till next year. Really.
Okay. All right, Steve. So get yourself ready for next year, and we'll be ready for that new Baha Men song too. All right.
All right.
All right, you guys.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Love seeing you all.
Bye.
Likewise.
All right, buddy. All right. More Charlie Bahama right after this. If you want more Charlie Bahama, go to any of our social media pages or subscribe to the Charlie Bahama YouTube page. Well, thanks for watching the Charlie Bahama show this week, and I got to thank my good friend Steve Greenberg and Isaiah for making that surprise call to Steve, because we're all really good friends from way back in the day. And who let the dogs out, man? You got to admit, love it or hate it, it was the #1 song back then, and everybody knows that song. So the Bahamas, had one of the #1 songs in the world. That's amazing, the Baha Men. All right. So when we're not on TV, follow us at Charlie Bahama, all our social media platforms, or please subscribe to our Charlie Bahama YouTube page. Let's get over 1 million subscribers, all right? Make the Bahamas big. And also, charliebahama.com, okay? So please, be kind to all your friends out there. We need kindness in the world, all right? Until next time. See ya!
Charlie Bahama Show. 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 Charlie Bahama Show.
Yeah.